Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Doris Etito. In this video, we are making Delta Owo soup. But before we begin, here are the ingredients you need to make Owo soup or Delta Owo soup. So these are all the list of ingredients we are going to use to make this Owo soup. The first ingredient on the list is palm oil. Now this palm oil is not your regular palm oil. This palm oil is thicker. If you go to any local market, just tell the seller you want palm oil for Owo soup. They know the oil to sell to you. The next item on the list is starch. This is cassava starch and it is a thickener for the soup. Cocoyam is not used to thicken Owo soup. Please take note. Another item is fish. Okay, now you can use any protein of your choice, but I'm using fish. I'm using fresh meat. I'm using periwinkle. I'm using dried prawns, and of course this special crayfish. This crayfish is specifically used for Owo soup. They are very tiny, but trust me, it gives lots of flavor and taste to your Delta Owo soup. Another ingredient is ground pepper. Fresh pepper is not used to make Delta Owo soup, and of course I have my seasoning and spices. That spice is for pepper soup, potash, native salt, and seasoning cube. Now the first thing to do is to put some water in a pot, bring it to a boil or just about when it's boiling, and into that water, hot water, almost boiling water, I'm adding my palm oil. Now the quantity of water is I'm using about 4 liters of water and 75 cl of palm oil. You can use less or you can use more depending on the quantity of soup you want to make. I will allow this to just almost boil a little, and then I will go in with my ground pepper. Okay, ground pepper is according to your tolerance. If you like your soup very hot and spicy, you can add as much as you want. Okay, just to your taste. Now I will allow it to boil a little, and into that I'm adding the crayfish. I have washed it and I'm adding it to the soup. After adding it, I'll add the spice, that pepper soup spice, that long black one. I'll heat it, then remove seed. It usually have seed, so I remove the seed and allow this to boil for almost 30 minutes. Okay, just so the palm oil will be well done. When you are done adding the crayfish and the spice, you can go ahead to add your fish. Now because I am using dry fish, I'm going to add it, then allow it to boil. Guys, I brought this soup out so that it will be clear, the video will be clear. And now I'm adding my seasoning cube and some salt. I will allow it to boil for a while, and then I will add the periwinkle. Now periwinkle cooks very fast, and especially because I'm going to add potash, that potash will make that periwinkle to also cook faster, as in make it tender. Now this has been boiling for a while, and now I'm adding the potash and native salt. When you're adding your potash and native salt, you have to keep an eye on the pot. If you don't keep an eye on this pot, the soup will just boil over and you'll be left with nothing in your pot. So what I'm doing is to simply go around the soup, making sure that the soup is not boiling to the brim of the pot, so that it will not boil over. So I'm just going about, stirring the soup just to make sure it doesn't boil over. I'm going to taste for the potash and the native salt, and if that is not enough, I'm going to add more. The quantity of potash and native salt you add to your Owo soup, it's according to your preference. Okay, so people like their soup with a lot of potash and native salt, while some people like theirs less, depending on your taste or your preference. I tasted that it wasn't enough and I'm going in with more. Remember, I said if you have to keep an eye on your soup, else it will boil over. But if you are using a very deep pot, you don't need to worry yourself about the soup boiling over. This pot is not so deep. It is deep, but because the quantity of soup is much, there's every tendency it may boil over if I don't continue stirring it. You can also keep an eye on what, just take note of what I am doing. I'm not adding the potash all at once. I'm adding the potash and the native salt a little at a time, a little I can control. That's it, a little at a time I can control. So go in with your potash and your native salt a little at a time you can control when it starts boiling. Okay, if you add all at once, trust me, it will boil over. But if you are using a very deep pot, it will not boil over. Okay, so now that I'm done with adding the potash and the native salt, I'm going in with my starch, the cassava starch. I have dissolved it in water and I'm going in a little at a time. Be careful when you're adding your starch. If you add all your starch at once, that will be a disaster. Your starch will just form lumps at the bottom of the pot and it might ruin your soup. Okay, make sure to go in a little at a time. I'm going in with 1 spoon of cassava starch, dissolved starch, a little at a time. As I'm doing this, I'm also checking the thickness of the soup. So if you add too much starch, your soup will be too thick. If you add less, it won't be thick. So go in with your starch a little at a time. Now you will notice that there is no fish in this soup. I have removed the fish because if I don't remove this fish, by the time I'm adding the starch, the fish will scatter inside the soup. Okay, so I've removed the fish, but if you are using meat, you don't need to remove the meat will not scatter. All right, so I've removed the fish and I'm also going in with the starch. Now this level of thickness is okay by me. I will allow it to boil for a while and then I will go in with my prawns, my dry prawns. I also have not added the prawns for the same reason as why I have removed the fish. Now prawns, when they tend to like break easily when you keep on stirring your soup just like that. Now that I have gotten the level of thickness, the consistency of thickness I want to my soup, I'm going in with the dry fish. After adding the dry fish, I'll taste for salt, taste for every other necessary thing, and once that is okay by me, I will allow the soup to boil for a while. Trust me, Owo soup is best eaten with eba, starch, plantain, yam, or garri. Garri is eba. Okay, you can use pounded yam, you can use fufu, any swallow of your choice. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave comments, share it if you can, and I will see you again in another video. Goodbye.